Hello and welcome to the interview here on France 24. Our guest today is Maria Mezentseva. She is a member of the Ukrainian parliament. She is also a member of a working group created by President Volodymyr Zelensky to campaign in favor of a special international tribunal to prosecute Russia. And she joins us from Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city, which was struck this Friday. Thank you very much for being with us. And how are you, first of all, after those recent strikes?
Thank you very much for this opportunity to talk about tribunal, but not only, I assume. I can only say I'm alive, and we are happy that there were no, fortunately, deaths and wounded today, but shellings are continuing across Ukraine. We are concerned about the fact that it is not the strikes against military objects, but mostly civilians and civil and critical infrastructure. That's what makes us talk about war crimes. But the mother crime of all is always a crime of aggression. And this is where tribunal has to come into place for sure.
Right. So I want to ask you, because Volodymyr Zelensky is calling for the creation of a special international tribunal for the crime of aggression by Russia against Ukraine. Obviously, this is going to be difficult. Are you seeing any momentum, international momentum, behind this tribunal?
Yes, the momentum is now, and we have started this tremendous work on reshuffling the attitude to any possible international tribunal for Putin and his closest counterparts in political and military level. And this is a top-level crime of aggression where we would want to see in The Hague at the special tribunal comprising of mostly international prosecutors, including Ukrainians ones, but they will be in the minority, possibly the tribunal dealing with the orders that were passed, dealing with the orders that were passed to invade, to escalate, to kill, to rape, and so on. So we're divided into these two groups of main crimes, crime of aggression and the war crimes which were followed by. And we are hoping that we can do it very shortly. You possibly know that yesterday the Parliament of the Netherlands voted in support of such resolution. We supported it as 46 member states in the Council of Europe last week. We are receiving support from different politicians, scholars, international lawyers who are dealing with, who were dealing with a sort of more or less the same tribunals, because it's not the first time in the history it would happen. But what we are searching for is that no impunity takes place in the 21st century, where all the institutions were called to create peace. They are now dealing with war aftermath.
Right. The foreign ministers of Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Romania are calling the EU to support this. You mentioned the Dutch parliament. However, several Western countries are not exactly in favor of that. We know Germany is not so much in favor. France is not so much in favor, because the argument is that you still need to talk to Putin. I mean, do you understand this argument, or do you think that it shouldn't be listened to?
I can comment on both both countries you've just mentioned. Let me start from Germany. We have conducted multiple meetings offline and online with different parliamentarians from different parties, but not only. And I think we have a warming up situation with Germany on this matter. And I can judge by the speeches of German and French delegates in the Council of Europe just last week. All of them were calling for creation of this tribunal. And we are traveling to Paris shortly. It will happen in around 2 weeks. Definitely one of the main topics to discuss would be the creation of tribunal. And as I said before, at the level of ambassadors, we already have discussions and support. I think it's all about spreading more information. Why is it needed? How the roadmap will follow, and how countries can join. Would there be a forum of the Council of Europe or the UN, or we endorse country by country to support this tribunal? And I would say that in terms of timing, We started only in March, and today we are in the end of October already having concrete decisions of concrete parliaments and governments to support it. So I have no doubt that we will have a success. You have rightly said that Germany and France are remaining, of course, key partners in this matter. We can take UK as an example. Just a couple of months ago, well, there was no clear support, but now we know that the messages coming from London directly are in favor of creating such a tribunal. We would need this international support because, as I said before, it's not about someone who has lost their families or their homes or their beloved ones or are now being tortured somewhere in Russia or at the temporary occupied territories. They can be military personnel, they can be civilians. It's about the fact that all of us are calling for no impunity at place. This crime is the mother crime of all. We would not face these difficulties with energy crisis, with food crisis. This is the breach of right to live, of the right for food, not only of Ukrainian nation, but beyond. This war is touching so many states that it's become a global need for a tribunal and a global need for justice. This is what we stand for.
Right. I want to get with some of the concrete things that you've just witnessed. You were just in Izium, which is near Kharkiv, where you are. The Russians left in a hurry a few weeks ago. There was this discovery of essentially a mass grave, and evidence surfaced, documented most recently by Human Rights Watch, of torture, routine torture by Russian troops in a deliberate strategy. From what you've seen, and I understand you spoke to some of the victims, is the scale of the suspected crimes discovered around Izium bigger than what we've seen early in the war in Bucha?
If we're not talking just in numbers and in adjectives, bigger or smaller, it's definitely a terrible war crime. We can be calling it even a genocide, which is also a topic for the ICC to discuss and investigate. We are highly thankful to all the international community who helped us to identify bodies. It's the issue of DNA tests. Some bodies are still not identified, and if no one have ever seen massive graves, that is something that makes you realize how brutal the invader is. It looks like Russians have been told and ordered to loot, to rape, to kill, and to torture. You are very right. Yesterday, I've spoken to several victims, but before we've interviewed together with the organization dealing with human rights, West Support, more than 300 people in Izium and beyond, in the recently deoccupied territories. People were beating up every day, multiple times. There were cases of raping, and they concerned not only women, I must say. There were terrible stories of starvation, of forcible disappearance, and of forcible displacements of people, of forcible obtaining of Russian passports, etc. All that makes us think that there is no way for us to swallow it and just to live with it. And Ukraine, as a country which commits itself to international law, to international humanitarian law, to Geneva Conventions, we will do everything possible to unite around us all the possible countries across the globe. And we're not just talking about Europe. For instance, Australia is also supporting this idea. We're talking to partners in US. This has to stop, and justice has to prevail. And I was in tears yesterday, and you can't just hear the stories without emotions, and we want these stories to be heard across the world. That's why we've brought with us international journalists again, and I'm sure the stories were heard in Paris just a couple of weeks ago when my colleague Mr. Dunda supported an event together with French journalists, your colleagues, to spread the stories from recently occupied territories about tortures, but everything that people witness. But they're still smiling. They're so happy that their homes are now
Are they coming back? Just as a last
deoccupied.
question, are they coming back?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And I'll give you a figure just briefly. Izum had 36,000 people before the occupation of Russian army. There were approximately 12,000, as the mayor claims, living during occupation for more than 6 months. Now it's 20,000 people. People are coming back. Electricity is back. Mobile and internet is back. Train is circulating from Kharkiv to Izum. So pensions are being paid. They were not paid during the occupation time. So life is slowly coming back, and we are very happy about that. We will continue to deliver humanitarian aid, medical services, and what the community is really in need of is building materials. And I'm sure our French partners can also help with that.
Maria Mezentseva, I want to thank you very much for being with us from Kharkiv in Ukraine. Thank you for watching this edition of the interview here on France 24.